The Rangers have completely shut down Alex Ovechkin for the first two games. Can they keep it up? Plus, an under-the-radar storyline and another unsung hero from the first two games.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1054 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So another big storyline from this game, and it's something that we've kind of talked about. We've touched on it here and there, but one of the biggest storylines, whether you're a Ranger fan, Caps fan, general hockey fan, one of the biggest things going on right now is the Rangers are emphatically shutting down Alex Ovechkin. He's basically been a ghost for the first two games of this series, and I never thought I'd be saying that about Ovechkin in general, and certainly not after the very impressive second half that he had for the Capitals down the stretch here. Obviously, the Capitals near the end of the season had to scratch and claw their way into the playoffs. He was a big reason why they even got in the first place. And in Ovechkin's last 37 games of the regular season, he had 23 goals, 14 assists, so right on the mark, point per game, but obviously scoring some big goals for his team. So he really caught fire after a relatively slow start to the season, especially compared to, his own very high bar that he has set for himself over the years. But through two games in this series, not only does Ovechkin not have a single point, but he, in fact, has all of one shot on goal. He got none in game one. Then in game two, the shot occurred right at the start of the game. Had to be the first 5 minutes or so. Actually got a decent look. Igor had to make a nice save, and he did. And, you start thinking as a Ranger fan, I'm sure Capitals fans is like, okay, he's probably going to start to pick it up and get it going a little bit in this game. And just didn't really happen. He was basically a non-factor the rest of the way in this game, to the point where the Capitals coach, Carberry, he was actually, I wouldn't say like a total call out to the media, but he did admit that right now, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but basically said that Ovechkin is currently struggling a little bit and just doesn't quite look like himself. Again, that's not the exact quote, but you get the idea. It was something along those lines. And you look at what the Rangers are doing. I mean, they're just doing a heck of a job, playing solid defense against him. Chris Kreider in particular deserves a shout out. And this was especially true in game one when the Capitals were on the power play. Basically, Kreider just shadowing Ovechkin all over the ice and almost, borderline taking him out of the play. And in a way, almost kind of taking himself and Ovechkin out of the play by just shadowing him everywhere and basically turning it into a 4-on-3 kind of a situation on the power play, which you wouldn't really think is a great strategy. But when you're dealing with Ovechkin, it's not the worst thing in the world if you can take away, especially that area of the ice where he really likes to shoot from. He hasn't been able to really get any shots away from that spot. So Kreider doing a nice job there. And the Rangers in general doing a nice job against Alex Ovechkin. They seem to have a game plan of not letting this guy beat them, and certainly that's an understandable game plan. The Caps, give them credit. They did everything they had to do to get into the playoffs, but they just don't have the amount of offensive weapons that we've seen them have in other seasons. I think that's fair to say. And if you can shut down the biggest one, that obviously bodes well for your chances of winning the series. And thus far, it resulted in a 2-0 series lead for the Rangers. And it wasn't just them preventing Ovechkin from shooting. There was a play when the Capitals were on the power play. Rangers were up by a goal at this point in the game two, of course. And we did discuss this a little bit in our last episode, but I think it bears repeating here. Just an excellent play by Mika Zibanejad. Steals the puck from Ovechkin in the neutral zone, goes in up the right side to Kreider. Kreider back to Mika to K'Andre Miller. Miller scores 4-2. That ends up being the game-winning goal of the Rangers' 4-3 win. So, it has not been a banner couple of games here for Alex Ovechkin. And it's interesting because I've seen people say that, like, oh, he was fired up after game one and he looks frustrated and everything. But honestly, I'm not even really noticing that. Um, it's hard to really find him. It feels like he just never really has the puck. You don't really notice him during plays, after plays. Just not a whole lot of, I guess, fire coming from Alex Ovechkin at this point in the series. Now, that could always change. At a certain point, I think your pride is on the line. And Alex Ovechkin is one of the greatest players to ever lace him up. And I just can't believe he's going to go out like this. I got to think there's better, play in general coming from Alex Ovechkin than what we've seen so far in this series. But I also want to point the spotlight to the end of this game. Even in crunch time, it's 4-3 Rangers, and it felt like Ovechkin never really had the puck here. Don't think he even attempted a shot. There was a rush that the Capitals had, and they've got their goalie pulled at this point and all that, and they're looking for the equalizer. And the Capitals are carrying the puck over the Ranger blue line, and Ovechkin's on the left side, and he's just kind of drifting toward the Ranger blue line. Now, I realize he has to stay on side on this play, so maybe that's why he wasn't flying, but I don't know. There just didn't seem to be any real urgency given the situation in this series and the situation in this game. And then there were a couple of times where the Caps were obviously set up in the Ranger zone, and the puck would go back to Ovechkin at the point, and he would just sort of, softly play the puck around the boards, behind the net. And, again, I get it to an extent because sometimes you just have to make the smart hockey play and the simple hockey play. But, I mean, this is Alex Ovechkin, one of the greatest to ever do it. If I'm a Caps fan, I want Ovechkin to try to force the issue a little bit. I want him to try to fake somebody out of his skates and try to get to the net and take a shot. Because obviously Ovechkin can shoot the puck, to put it very mildly, and he just wasn't doing that. And, the only real shot that he had at it was when the puck came back in front of the Ranger net in the final seconds, and he kind of took a swipe at it there. Pacioretty was there too. But I think by the time the puck had gotten out there, the game was already over. So I don't even think you can really count that as a shot attempt for Ovechkin. But what a way, if you're the Rangers, to take control of this series and in some ways potentially demoralize your opponent. And cannot emphasize this enough that this series is not over. Obviously, I've always said that. I will practice what I preach. A hockey series is never over until somebody wins 4 games. But so far, it's gone very well for the Rangers. They've been able to shut down Ovechkin. And if you want to just kind of demoralize and deflate your opponent a little bit, I think, going after the head of the snake, as they say, probably a good way to do it. The Capitals, again, they don't have the offensive weapons that we've seen them have in other seasons. And if you take away their biggest star, the Stanley Cup champion, the captain, the multiple-time Hart winner, I think 13-time All-Star or whatever it is, his accolades go on and on. But if you take that player out of the equation, as the Rangers have in these first couple of games here, that obviously, bodes well for your team's chances of success. And again, it's all added up to a 2-0 series lead for the Rangers. I still think, I mentioned this a second ago, this is not the best that we're going to see out of Alex Ovechkin. At some point, there's going to be some pushback, but hopefully the Rangers can continue to defend. I mean, if they defend against him even close to how well they have earlier in this series, then again, it's looking good for the Rangers going forward. One final thought that I just want to kind of throw out there just for fun as we talk about Ovechkin here. Can you imagine the way Ranger fans, and I'm not even saying wrongly, can you imagine, though, the reaction Ranger fans would be having if Panarin had been playing like this, or Zibanejad, or Kreider, the high-paid players, the star players, the guys that you expect to, get the job done at this time of the season? I don't even want to think about what Ranger fans would be saying about some of those players if they, were scuffling and just struggling to create any kind of offense the way Ovechkin currently is. Again, I think at a certain point he's going to find it, and the Rangers are going to have to be ready. But for the time being, they've done a heck of a job against Alex Ovechkin. Can't really do much better. Going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to shift our attention to what I think is kind of an under-the-radar storyline, and another reason why I think the Rangers deserve a lot of credit for what they've done in the first 2 games of this series. Going to do a whole bunch of other stuff as well. First, though, we definitely would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or on Google Play. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. For the everydayers, you guys are definitely going to want to stick around. I mean, you're going to want to stick around for the whole playoffs. We're having a lot of fun so far, and obviously we hope that the good times keep rolling here. But with that said, in our next episode, probably going to not be until after Game 3 on Friday. That'll be our 5th and final episode of the week. Obviously, the Rangers play Friday night. The puck drops at 7 p.m. in D.C., and after that game is over, hoping to do an episode that night. If not, Saturday at some point will be the time that the episode drops. But that's then for right now. Again, a low-key storyline that I think the Rangers deserve credit for, and something that I haven't really seen a whole lot of teams talk about. I mean, it's one of those things, I think people are aware of it, but I kind of wanted to take a minute to break it down here. And that's that the Rangers, at least so far, again, just 2 games, got to win 4 to advance. Got to emphasize that. But the Rangers right now are facing a challenge that every President's Trophy winning team and really every number 1 seed faces. And that is the very simple fact that the Rangers have known for a long time that they were going to be a playoff team. I mean, forget about when they officially clinched. We know they were the first team to officially clinch a spot, but they knew, a good amount of time before that, yeah, we're going to be a playoff team. So there's that. On the flip side of that, the Capitals didn't know that they were going to be a playoff team until the clock hit 0 on their final game of the regular season. Of course, they had to win their last 3 games of said regular season just to get into the playoffs. And so now you've got a team that's known it's going to be in the playoffs for a long time and hasn't really played a big important game. I mean, rivalry games are important and everything, and you want to get as high of a seed as possible, but it's not like the Rangers' lives were on the line, for some of these games down the stretch in the regular season. For the Capitals, every night was Game 7. And I also wonder, as I say that, we've seen some President's Trophy winning teams falter. The 2 that really stand out are the Lightning and the Bruins, and those 2 teams were light years ahead of everybody in the standings, and they lose in the first round. And I wonder if maybe that's part of it. They go so long without playing a really meaningful, really important game, and then they're matched up against a team that was scratching and clawing and doing everything possible to get into the playoffs, and they've basically been playoff hockey for a long time. The President's Trophy winner has not, and that occasionally will result in an upset in the first round. But the Rangers, they've done a nice job. They've basically beaten the Caps at every area of their game and just about every aspect of the game of hockey. And I do think the Rangers down the stretch in the regular season really did a nice job with usually matching the urgency of some of these playoff bubble teams. And, there were nights where they didn't. But bottom line, Caps have been in a playoff mindset, I would say, for probably at least a month. The Rangers, again, usually the urgency and the fire and the determination is there from this team, but human nature, right? They know where they are in the standings. They know they're going to be a playoff team. It's easy to have, a let up on a certain night. And be that as it may, the fact that the Caps were playing playoff-like games down the stretch and the Rangers really weren't. I mean, I think that's fair to say. They obviously took very different paths to the playoffs. But you look at that, and the Rangers have hit the ground running in the playoffs. They've been playing playoff-style hockey. They're beating the Caps, like I said, in just about every facet of the game. Obviously, the scoreboard, you can start there. The best players on the Rangers, though, are outplaying the best players on the Capitals. They're getting better goaltending, are the Rangers, a little bit better special teams play. I think they've created a few more odd man rushes than they've given up, and the physical play. They're throwing their weight around and beating the Caps in some ways at their own game there. And I just think it's a credit to the Ranger coaching staff, the players, everybody. This team being ready to go and not, being blinded by the bright lights of the playoffs and, falling to a team, at least not yet in any of these games, that, like I said, has had to play with playoff-like urgency night in and night out down the stretch of the regular season. And one other thing I want to mention here while we're on this subject is Laviolette after this game did not seem all that thrilled about the last couple of minutes, is what he had to say. We'll definitely go back and take a look at that. I think there's things we could have done better. At the end of the day, we were able to get through it, move on, and get the win and get out of there. And the reason I bring this up is we now talked about the fact that the Rangers obviously had to find their playoff groove very quickly here, and they have. But you combine that with the fact that Laviolette was maybe a little bit less than thrilled at the end of this game. I think there's good reason to believe that the Rangers are going to come out laser focused and absolutely flying in game 3. I know it's on the road. I know the Caps are going to be the more desperate team down 2-0. But I just feel like this is kind of all building to a perfect storm of the Rangers, really coming out strong in game 3 against the Capitals. We'll see how it goes. But look, the Rangers have mostly looked good. They're up 2-0 for all the reasons we just mentioned. Game 3 is absolutely huge. You can say that for every game of the playoffs. I get that. But there is just a universe of difference between being up 3-0 and being up 2-1. You got them on the ropes, keep them there, knock them out, give them a big time, punch in game 3 here, and take it from there. Obviously, again, series is never over until somebody wins 4, but the Rangers obviously doing a nice job here, and it's just been awesome to see them, really hit their playoff stride, play playoff style hockey, basically as soon as the puck dropped in game 1. It hasn't always been perfect, but the Rangers, for the most part, playing with the intensity, the drive, the fire that is needed at this time of the season, and not just matching, but eclipsing the Capitals so far in all of those departments. So we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to shift our attention to somebody else that I consider something of an unsung hero for this series. I mean, specifically in game 2, but you can throw in some things from game 1 as well. We will get to that player in just a second. First, though, we would definitely like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. Indeed does the hard work for you. Sponsor a job and we'll match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That is why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And so, let's go ahead and move on here and talk about somebody who I think is something of an unsung hero for the first 2 games of this series. And I'm going to go with Barclay Goodrow. I know he can come under fire every now and then from Ranger fans, but I really feel like he's played well these first 2 games, just a blue-collar, gritty hockey player. And I thought about it in the last episode. We had an episode where we gave the unsung hero to Jacob Trouba. In this episode, we're going to go ahead and give Barclay Goodrow his props. We still got a couple days before game 3 here. We might as well. And again, we're looking at the full body of work games 1 and 2, more specifically game 2. But to talk about game 1 really quick, 2 apples for Goodrow in game 1. He had the clutch pass to Jimmy Vesey. Vesey then immediately set up Rempe for the tipping goal. That made it 1-0 Rangers. And then, of course, a tough face-off win by Barclay Goodrow. Got it back there clean to Jimmy Vesey. Vesey took the shot soon thereafter, just a second or 2 thereafter, and scored. And that was big too. And as we mentioned in a recent episode, the third line almost ended up with a 3rd goal later in game 1. But as for game 2, just a lot of little things to begin with. You know what? This isn't even a little thing. This is a big thing. So, face-off prowess. Barclay Goodrow was right around 54% success rate in the regular season, and that was his best face-off success rate since I want to say like 2017, 2018, somewhere in that area. It's been a while since he's been that good on the dot. And in this game, in the face-off circle, Barclay Goodrow went 7-2. That is big-time hockey. Playoff hockey, one of the things that I think is very much magnified is the ability to win faceoffs. The Rangers have been winning faceoffs all season, and these first 2 games are no exception. They've largely dominated the faceoff circle in these games against the Caps. But Goodrow in game 2, he ends up with 13 minutes, 35 seconds of ice time. He was out there for .239 on the penalty kill. That led all Ranger forwards. That led every Ranger, not named Ryan Lindgren. Lindgren was actually out there for .349 while the Rangers were shorthanded. So that's a blue-collar effort in its own right there. And, granted, the Rangers did give up 2 power play goals in this game, but I think it says a lot with all the good penalty-killing forwards that the Rangers have, that Laviolette trusts Barclay Goodrow as much or more than anyone. And obviously, Rangers had a top 3 penalty kill in the regular season. Goodrow had a hand in that as well. And I get the feeling that Goodrow will continue to be, a go-to forward for Laviolette on the penalty kill. To kind of wrap up his stat numbers here before we look at some of his highlights, 2 shots on goal for Goodrow, 2 hits, 1 takeaway, and he actually had 22 shifts, and no Ranger forward had more than 23. So again, Barclay Goodrow really being entrusted by Laviolette and this Ranger coaching staff to go out there and play good hockey and do some of the little things needed to get the win. And as far as like some of the things that don't show up in the box score, got a couple of plays here I wanted to talk about. Here's a big one when the Rangers were shorthanded. So Goodrow went in like partial breakaway. He's got a capital right there on his heels and trying to cut him off. But Goodrow is going forward, trying to get to the net. And he actually made a little bit of a mistake here because he left a drop pass for a Ranger skater that was not there. The Capitals were able to pick it up and go back the other way. So I don't know. Maybe Goodrow heard somebody behind him. He thought it was a teammate calling for the puck. Obviously, it was not. But what I love about this is the Capitals got the puck, and Goodrow immediately turns around, backtracks, goes flying back to the Rangers zone, and the first thing he does, he gets there, he breaks up a pass as soon as he, re-enters the Rangers zone and immediately gets it back down the ice. So that was awesome. This was an excellent penalty kill in general by the Rangers, and just blue-collar effort by Barclay Goodrow. Great hustle to get back on the backtrack, and again, break up the pass and, kill any chance of a Capitals scoring opportunity in that instance. And the crowd was responding big at this point in the game. I want to say, I think the Rangers, it was 1-1 at this point, and the crowd was getting back into it. And obviously you need a big kill, and the Rangers got it, and they got a big play from Barclay Goodrow in that instance. Another big play that he made, and we mentioned this one briefly in the last episode, but Charlie Lindgren for the Capitals, careless with the puck, just kind of nonchalantly was going to one-hand the puck over to his side, and here comes Barclay Goodrow out of nowhere, just flying into the offensive zone like a maniac, trying to get to the puck. He does get to the puck, almost stuffs it home, almost caught Lindgren napping on that one, was not able to bury it, but this seemed to really kind of spark the Rangers, really kind of ignite them. They had a lot of bottom 6 forwards on the ice at this time, and they were buzzing in the offensive zone, and all of this led to the Capitals taking a penalty. That probably doesn't happen if not for the hustle of Barclay Goodrow, and like I said, almost stuffing in the puck from the doorstep there. So another big play there, and another huge play at the end of the game. This was when the Capitals, it was right after they pulled their goalie, offensive zone faceoff for the Capitals, 2:48 to go in the game. Capitals win a faceoff clean to Alex Ovechkin. Ovechkin looks to shoot, so he did attempt at least one shot here in the final couple of minutes, did Ovechkin, but he takes the shot. Barclay Goodrow gets right in the shooting lane, blocks it, and Jimmy Vesey actually picked up the puck and just missed burying it into the empty net. Ended up being an icing, had a chance to ice the game, was not quite able to do it, but yeah, Goodrow, obviously, nice job in that instance, blocking the shot. And then after Vesey shot the puck down the ice, Goodrow once again went flying into the Capital zone. He got pretty close to negating the icing. I think it was the right call. I think, the Capital would have gotten there first. But regardless, again, just a blue-collar effort from Barclay Goodrow. Again, I know he comes under fire from time to time, but one of several players on this Ranger team, to me at least, that seems to be playing his best brand of hockey down the stretch in the regular season and now in the playoffs. And him scoring a couple goals late in the season, that was obviously nice, and the assists were nice in game 1 as well. But if Barclay Goodrow goes out there, blocks shots, helps kill penalties, just does, the kind of dirty work that the Rangers are looking for him to do, then he's obviously going to be an effective player in the playoffs. And this man also has a really nice track record when it comes to postseason hockey. He had a huge goal for the Lightning against the Islanders. I'm trying to remember the context of it. I think it was a game. He might have scored the only goal. I would have to look that one up. to know for sure. But that was like a game 6 when he did that. And the one that really stands out, and I think a lot of people remember, game 7 overtime winner against Vegas when he was still playing for the Sharks. So does Goodrow have another moment like that in him? I mean, he's already had a couple of, little moments here and there and little things that he's done to help the Rangers win. But is he going to, at some point in this playoff run, score a goal, dish out an assist, prevent a goal from being scored? I feel like that's at least possible. Goodrow doesn't score very often, but we know he does seem to have the clutch gene when he does score. So, again, just wanted to give some props to Barclay Goodrow. Happy for him that, again, he's playing his best brand of hockey at this time of the season. It's obviously a good thing for the Rangers, and hopefully it continues. And I figured we could pretty much call it there for today. One more thing that I did want to mention real quick here before we do end the show, though. David Quinn, it is, what day is today? I'm getting all my days mixed up. It's Wednesday afternoon. Not more than an hour before I hit record, news broke on Twitter. David Quinn has been fired by the Sharks after just 2 seasons. Or if you want to go by the tweet, this is what they said officially. The Sharks have relieved him of his coaching duties, which, as we know, is just a fancy way of saying he was fired. It obviously didn't go very well for the Sharks under David Quinn, but I don't know how many coaches could have done better. That is just an awful team, and they don't seem to be really doing that well with the rebuild. I mean, I'd have to ask JD Young, the host of Locked On Sharks. He does an awesome job. I'd have to ask him to know for sure, but it feels like there have been some missteps along the way, and Quinn paid the price for it. And will he be a head coach again? I don't think it'll happen, going into next season. He might be at the point where he needs to kind of rebuild his stock as an assistant coach, or maybe he goes back to the college ranks. I mean, I'm not really sure what's next for David Quinn, but will he coach in the NHL again? I think it's at least possible. We do see coaches tend to get at least a couple of chances before, the sun sets. But again, he did the best he could. I know there were Ranger fans that didn't like him, and they probably are in better hands now with Peter Laviolette than they were with David Quinn. But be that as it may, again, I can't really fault him that much for the Sharks not having success over these past couple of seasons. But yeah, I figure we can call it there. Once again, if you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.